Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Discovery Soundbites. My name is Marie Beam. I'm CEO of Discovery Museum in Acton, Massachusetts, where we invite children and their families to explore science and nature through play, indoors and out. I am very honored to be here today with Tom Weber, Executive Director of the Massachusetts Business Coalition for Early Childhood Education. Recognizing that early childhood education is a critical economic enabler, Tom's work focuses on making early childhood ed more accessible, more affordable, and more stable for families, and a point of differentiation in attracting and retaining a strong workforce here in Massachusetts. Tom, thanks so much and welcome.
Thank you, Marie. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, as you know, we have three questions that we ask of each of our guests, so I'll jump right in. Our first question, Tom, from your perspective, what is the biggest opportunity now to improve the lives of kids and families?
Marie, thank you for the question. And I have to say that I've never really been more optimistic about potential for families and communities to improve the lives of our young children. I've had an opportunity over the course of my career to work as a policymaker for the state at the Department of Early Education and Care. And now I work really closely with the employer community in Massachusetts to emphasize the essential value that early childhood has, not only for the well-being of children, which is quite important, obviously, but also to families to be able to support their economic well-being and their ability to achieve the optimal success that they would like for themselves and for their children. I think right now, the opportunity is to continue to build on the vast body of research that shows the value of high quality early childhood developmental opportunities for children and for families, and to recognize that families themselves have an essential role within the support for young children. And what does that look like? I think it's more than just kind of a trite thing to say. It's actually honoring the fact that parents are the essential educators in their children's lives. Family members beyond parents can play an important role as a primary educator for their children, and that we have a growing body of resources for families to leverage to be able to play that role. And when they're doing that, they're making an enormous contribution to the lives of their children and making an enormous contribution to society because they're building more resilient children for the present, and they're building children who are going to be more successful in the long run. So I think that what I see is a period of time in which we now recognize this as being a really powerful moment in children's lives, and we're continuing to make the kinds of investments in infrastructure that enables families to be able to leverage that knowledge into something that's really meaningful for their children. And part of that infrastructure, importantly, are the museums that we have throughout our state, like the Discovery Museum and the resources that you're providing to families within your communities.
Thanks for that, Tom. We're proud to be part of that network and that
You
structure.
should be.
Our second question, what can we do at home in our communities?
Yeah. Well, it's a good way to build off of my prior answer. I think the first thing is just understanding that every single person has the ability to play a really meaningful role in the early childhood development of our youth. And when I say that in terms of in our homes and within our communities, to your question, look, for little opportunities in the course of the day. I'll just speak to something that's just quite personal to me. When I look back on my own childhood, perhaps the most important thing was that my parents instilled a really deep love of reading. They nurtured that. And it wasn't just sitting down with a book, it was storytelling that began at the earliest possible age. My mother would routinely use all of those little moments that you had in the course of the day, whether it was at the grocery store or in car rides, to initiate what we thought of as a game, which always was Once Upon a Time. And then we would launch down that road and see where it took us. And it took us to some really, wonderful, magical places. But it began to instill, the vocabulary that became so important to my early literacy. And it really coupled with, the literacy that I was gaining from my early reading. So, those are really small and important moments that are invaluable. And we shouldn't always look at early childhood development as being only about formal programming, but those, more informal opportunities that we have within our household are really, really important. And when we look to our communities, again, our formal system of early childhood education, our childcare programs, our early childhood education programs are really important, but they're not the only thing. And that's where I think opportunities provided by places like Discovery Museum are really important. You can look to those resources within a community and immediately identify, no matter what your relationship is with a young child, whether it's as a parent or another family member or just somebody that has a mentoring role, that there are real, resources for you to be able to leverage as a community member to be a participant within a stronger early childhood education experience for our children.
Sounds like a lot of what you're talking about is just about taking moments to connect, right? Yeah,
That's absolutely right. And understanding that there are resources available for you to do so. But being present and taking those opportunities to connect is so incredibly powerful.
that's wonderful. You've referenced this in both of your answers, Tom, but our final question is, what is one bright spot you are seeing?
I see a lot of bright spots right now. And I think that, the Discovery Museum is creating a number of bright spots. I think that there is just a growing appreciation for all the dimensions of early childhood development and the value that it brings to our society. I think we've come to recognize over the course of the last several decades just how invaluable that moment from 0 to 5 for our children is in terms of their educational development. But what I think we're also coming to appreciate is that it's a multi-generational benefit. That as we are creating, safe and nurturing places for our young children, we're simultaneously creating the ability for families to be able to become engaged more deeply in the economy and to be able to join the workforce and to be able to succeed. And in doing so, they're making a contribution not only to their family unit, but also to stronger communities and to a stronger economy. So, it's I think a fact now that is becoming more readily accepted that early childhood education and early childhood development is important infrastructure for a successful society. And as we see that elevated, and I think we've seen it elevated through significant increases in public investments, but also I think a greater embracing by families of their ability to support their children. I see that as being a really important bright spot that we want to lean into and make sure it gets brighter and brighter.
It's just great, Tom. Thank you so much for your insights, your wisdom, all your perspective. I'd like to thank Tom Weber from the Massachusetts Business Coalition for Early Childhood Education for being with us today. And I also thank all of you for listening or watching. And thank you in particular to our generous sponsors for making Discovery Soundbites possible. If you'd like to learn more about Discovery Museum and our work, please visit us at discoveryacton.org. Come play with us.